As a government, one of the most important responsibilities we have to the people we represent in every borough and community is to deliver a city budget that reflects their needs and priorities. We know what's possible when New Yorkers can access opportunity. Children are healthier, parents can advance in their careers, and our communities are safer. That's why year after year, we have focused on deepening our investments in affordable housing, strengthening our early childhood education system and public schools, and fighting for the institutions that support our neighbors, like our libraries, parks, and older adult centers. While too much of our collective efforts in the past years have been spent on restoring budget cuts, our persistence and subsequent wins have led to progress in this year's budget. I have repeatedly insisted on our need to move away from a budget of restoration to one that strengthens investments in New Yorkers. This year, we're making big strides toward that goal. Together, we secured $112 million in baseline funding for 3K and pre-K, as well as $125 million for preschool special education. This budget preserves child care vouchers and commits important education funding. We also secured $10 million to expand child care for our youngest children from 0 to 2 years old, because this is how we empower families to afford and remain in our city. Because libraries are the pillars of our neighborhoods, we increased operational support for them and are expanding 7-day library service to 10 more branches across the city. This year's budget includes $25 million for fair fares to reach even more New Yorkers, up to 150% of the federal poverty level. The budget also reflects the Council's persistent efforts to push the city towards investing in mental health and public safety solutions at a greater scale so that we can close Rikers and connect more people to care. We have secured critical funding for older adult services, cultural institutions, parks workers, sanitation services, and other programs that support a better quality of life for New Yorkers in our neighborhoods. The budget also protects the many New Yorkers and services that have come under attack from the most harmful aspects of the Trump administration's agenda. We added $50 million for immigrant legal services to protect against blatant violations of constitutional rights that have become all too normalized by the Trump administration. When New Yorkers' civil rights are at risk and families are being separated, the city must step up and defend them. We are prioritizing crime victims when the federal government is abandoning them, doubling down on the benefits and values of our cultural diversity, and increasing food assistance at a time when Trump and his allies in Congress are threatening to diminish help for hardworking Americans. The successes in this year's budget are the product of multi-year efforts built upon a foundation of relentless advocacy by this council together with New Yorkers across our entire city. While there is more work ahead, this shows that together we can build a city where the budget reflects all of our needs, where families can afford not just to survive, but live and flourish right here. This budget belongs to all of us, and I thank my colleagues and everyone who fought alongside us to win a budget that makes a more just and equitable city possible for all New Yorkers. Now let's move on to other items on our stated agenda. First, we'll vote on the following land use items: the Coney development, modifications to the city map that will enable a proposed entertainment complex in the Coney Island Amusement District to apply for a state gaming facility license. If awarded by the state, the proposed development would include a casino, hotel, convention center, retail spaces, a food hall, event and rooftop space, as well as a 1,500 space parking lot in Councilmember Justin Brannan's district. Grace Houses will facilitate the development of a 5-story mixed-use building and a 7-story residential building created creating a combined 153 affordable rental units and community facility space for the Grace Baptist Church and Councilmember Nurses District. Hallett's Point SCA siting will facilitate the construction of a new approximately 547 to 754 seat K-8 school in Councilmember Caban's district. We'll also vote on the following finance items. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan would approve the expenditure of payments in lieu of taxes to fund the development of infrastructure over the Western Rail Yards in support of the development of housing. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would approve the new designation and changes in the designation of certain organizations to receive funding in the expense budget. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would establish a new 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for one lot in Councilmember Sean Abreu's district. And a preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would establish a new 30-year extended partial Article 5 tax exemption for two lots in Councilmember Abreu's district. Next, we'll vote on the following resolutions. Resolution 817, sponsored by Councilmember Tiffany Caban, would call upon the New York State Legislature to provide the necessary funds to ensure hospital and healthcare provider services for gender-affirming care remain accessible for all people in New York City. Resolution 931, sponsored by Councilmember Sandy Nurse, would condemn the Trump administration for disappearing immigrants to prisons in other countries. Today, we'll also vote on the following legislation. Introduction 1296A, sponsored by Councilmember Carlina Rivera, would expand the allowable color of sidewalk shed parapet panels to include approval or alternate artwork through the City Canvas program. This change would make city buildings eligible to utilize capital funding to participate in the program. Now I invite Councilmember Rivera to the podium to discuss her legislation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Councilmember Carlina Rivera, nice to see you. I want to thank Speaker Adams for this opportunity just to speak briefly on my bill, Intro 1296. This will enhance the City Canvas program. The City Canvas program is something that was initially launched as a pilot and was codified by the City Council. It's going to allow artists to express their artistic view, their pieces of art on sidewalk sheds, scaffolding, fences of the city, and really just enhance what is typically seen as an eyesore and something that is not necessarily just a good-looking corner or building. New York City is and always has been a living canvas, a place where creativity flourishes on every corner and in every neighborhood. And the City Canvas program is going to add to that. We're going to take these eyesores and turn them into open-air galleries, giving our local artists a platform to share their work with millions of New Yorkers and visitors and transforming everyday walks into moments of color and inspiration. And what this bill would do is it would amend the City Canvas program and make eligible capital funding on city-owned properties, ensuring that more buildings can participate and more artists can be commissioned to bring their vision to the streets. We're not just talking about beautification, we're also talking about jobs for artists and pride in our neighborhoods, a streetscape that reflects the creativity and diversity of the people who live here. And that is also very reflective of the speaker's commitment to supporting artists, artist neighborhoods, artist communities, artist housing. And of course, I just want to take this moment to highlight the historic times that we are living in and how this year's budget will protect the cultural sector from turbulence that's being fueled by the federal administration, with funding grant cuts and restrictive immigration policies that are impacting tourism. At the urging of the council, the administration added $45 million additional funding in the executive budget, but given the historic times we are in, we have to make historic investments to sustain our cultural sector. And with the leadership of Adrienne Adams, and of course this body, we got an additional $30 million for the sector, $41 million for arts education. And just locally in my own district, I'm very, very proud to say we got $5 million for the Joyce Theater on East 10th Street, $1.5 million for the Public Theater right at Astor Place, $1.5 million for Playwrights Horizon Studio renovation. In addition to everything that you heard, funding for parks, for our schools. And again, I just want to say that I'm very, very proud of the bill. I think it's just one small step in the trail that we have really blazed as a council in supporting the cultural sector. I think this budget is clearly a reflection of that. And really the Speaker's work. I want to just thank you, Madam Speaker, because I had 2 babies in 2 years. This is a very demanding job. And over and over again, she has been very, very gracious in just the demand on our time. She talks about this a lot, how we have this demand on our time. It's competing, all the different forces and sectors in our life. And I think she's been really, really focused on supporting not just the work that we do in our own respective committees, but what our own districts are facing. And so I'm very, very proud to pass $115.9 billion in our budget, but also proud of the legislation my colleagues and I are passing today. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Introduction 1281A, sponsored by Councilmember Eric Dinowitz, would postpone the natural gas alarm requirement of Local Law 157 of 2016 to no earlier than January 1st, 2027. I invite Councilmember Dinowitz to discuss his legislation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. No problem. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councilmember Eric Dinowitz. I first want to thank Speaker Adrienne Adams and my colleagues in the Council, the Speaker for her steadfast leadership and commitment to ensuring that this Council responds to real needs of real New Yorkers. And time and again, she has supported initiatives that address the unique challenges facing our community. I am proud to serve alongside her, and I am grateful for her leadership as a Speaker. And particularly with this bill, which was introduced on June 12th, and we're voting on it today, June 30th. That is a very quick turnaround for legislation. So in 2014, 2015, we had a number of natural gas explosions. It's a long time ago. And in response to that, a law was passed, Local Law 157 of 2016. And one of the elements of that law was that when certain standards were passed by the federal government, the DOB would create rules that every apartment and hotel had to have these natural gas detectors. That deadline for everyone to have that detector was May 1st of this year. The only problem is that these detectors aren't actually available. There's a single company that makes these detectors. A number of them have been recalled. There are supply chain issues, and this is a really important bill. These are really important detectors. In fact, one of the buildings that had an explosion was the John F. Kennedy campus, where I had taught. So this is something that I know is very important and was passed with really good intention. But right now, we are in this situation where buildings, tenants, shareholders can be fined for a mandate that is impossible to comply with. The law's purpose was never to punish building owners or residents for circumstances outside their control. It was never meant to create new financial or logistical burdens for New Yorkers. It was designed to keep people safe. So this bill extends the deadline to no earlier than January 1st, 2027, and allows, under certain circumstances, for the DOB to extend the deadline for which people need to have these detectors. So this bill is really going to help, a lot of buildings really comply with something that is impossible to comply with now. And this is the really important work of this council, responding to the needs of everyone we represent. And that's what this bill does. And I want to thank my colleagues, all of the people who co-sponsored this, who are voting for it, particularly on the Housing Buildings Committee for moving this bill forward, Chair Sanchez, of course. The many advocates who spoke about the need for this law to be adjusted for more reasonable enforcement, including the Association of Riverdale Co-ops and Condominiums in my district, but also includes a number of co-ops throughout the city. So we're excited to pass this bill today, to sign it into law, and to keep building a city that protects its residents in every way possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Introduction 99B, sponsored by Councilmember Natasha Williams, would require the Department of Transportation to establish overnight parking areas in industrial business zones for commercial vehicles. The bill would also require DOT to conduct outreach to commercial entities in the area, as well as truck drivers operating in the city to inform them of these new areas. I invite with great glee Councilmember Williams to discuss this important piece of legislation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thanks to my colleagues as well for our continued ongoing commitment to our neighborhoods. I know I'm talking about Intro 99, but I know we're passing a bill today, and I just wanted to mention that there's still so much important work to do with the Commission on Human Rights and the Commission on Racial Equity. But to my bill, I'm so proud to see Intro 99 be passed, a bill that marks a meaningful step forward in addressing a long-standing challenge in Southeast Queens and beyond, managing commercial truck parking in residential and industrial areas. I want to thank Speaker Adams so much, and of course, Chair of Transportation and Infrastructure, Majority Whip Brooks Powers, both of whom represent parts of Southeast Queens and have heard firsthand the concerns from our residents. Blocked sidewalks, narrowed streets, safety risk, and families feeling like their neighborhoods are being taken over by parked trucks. When the city launched its overnight truck parking pilot, Southeast Queens was left out. That's why this bill is so critical. Intro 99B creates designated overnight parking in industrial business zones, but also ensures real community engagement before any decisions are made. It requires the Department of Transportation to consult with local leaders, businesses, and truck drivers, making sure that all voices are heard. We're not anti-business. Truck drivers and commerce are vital to this city, but we need to balance this balance. And this legislation helps move us towards solutions that respect the needs of workers and protect the quality of life in our neighborhoods. Whether it's passing a budget, a great budget by this speaker, or passing bills, our job is the same, making sure government works for the people, listening, responding, and delivering meaningful results. I'm encouraged by the progress we've made with this budget, and I'm ready to move forward for the benefit of all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Okay. Introduction 3A, sponsored by Councilmember Shawn Abreu, would specify that the Department of Sanitation is the agency responsible for the removal of all derelict vehicles from the street. Under state law, a vehicle is derelict if it is abandoned, does not have license plates, and has a wholesale value of $1,250 or less. I now invite Councilmember Abreu to discuss his important legislation. So important.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, the Council is voting to pass my bill that codifies the Department of Sanitation's responsibility to remove derelict and abandoned vehicles from our city streets. In our committee, we've heard from countless of New Yorkers, especially in neighborhoods like mine that are too often treated as out of sight, out of mind, about how these vehicles attract garbage, they breed rats, and send a message that the community is neglected. This is another side of the illegal dumping coin. Sometimes it's trash bags or construction debris. Sometimes it's cars left to rot curbside. No matter the form, it's unacceptable. This bill updates the administrative code to formally make DSNY the agency responsible for investigating these complaints, removing abandoned vehicles, and referring cases to other agencies like the NYPD when needed. I want to thank my colleagues and Speaker Adams for supporting this legislation. And I have to say that these last 4 years, I couldn't have asked for a better speaker. Every time we needed help in our district, from whether it's budget and legislation, she's been there for me. And I think that your fight, your integrity, your care for your members is unparalleled. And for my first 4 years in office, it's something I'll never forget and always cherish.
Right, you guys, this is a little too soon for all of this. I'm not ready.
You're not going.
Okay.
From the heart.
Introduction 857B, and I love them too, sponsored by Councilmember Rafael Salamanca, would require the Department of Sanitation to, within 24 hours of receiving a report of an abandoned vehicle, determine whether the vehicle qualifies as derelict under state law. If DSNY cannot ascertain the vehicle identification number of any vehicle it determines to be derelict, it would be required to remove the vehicle from the street within 24 hours of it being reported as abandoned. I invite Councilmember Salamanca to the podium to discuss his bill. He's not here today. Okay, there's so many of you, it's just hard to... We thank him for his legislation. Introduction 643A, sponsored by Councilmember Kevin Riley, would require that information be posted on the Parks Department's website on how to access the Department of Education's indoor basketball courts when the weather does not allow for the use of outdoor basketball courts. The bill would also require DPR and DOE to conduct a study on how to improve overall access to indoor basketball courts, and I invite Councilmember Kevin Riley to the podium to discuss his legislation.
I don't want to see the speaker leave yet, so I'll wait. I'm going to wait. Well, we love you, Madam Speaker. As someone born and raised in the Bronx, and as someone who represents a community that knows what it means to be overlooked, I know how much a basketball court can mean to communities like mine. It's more than a game. It's mentorship, it's structure, it's discipline, and most of all, it's a safe space for our young people, safe, reliable space for our young people. Today, we're taking a meaningful step toward closing the recreational equity gap in New York City, especially for our young and community basketball leagues, who often struggle to find indoor space whenever the weather is not pretty much going their way. Intro 643A is a targeted improvement to the original Indoor Hoops Act. While the original bill called for a citywide plan, this updates the version goes further by requiring the Department of Parks and Recreation to post clear, accessible information about indoor court availabilities, including those under the Department of Education. It also calls for a study on how we improve access by streamlining the permit process and looking at how public use can be expanded when schools are closed. This isn't just about basketball. It's about building safer neighborhoods, supporting public health and public safety, and giving young people the tools they need to grow, lead, and succeed, rain or shine, no matter where their zip code is. I want to thank my 28 colleagues, and more, I want to thank the chair of Parks and Recreation, Shekhar Krishna, for helping me champion this bill. Passing this legislation sets a precedent. Indoor recreation spaces shouldn't be a privilege. It should be a right. And because every young person deserves a chance to dream and play and thrive within their own community. Thank you so much to my colleagues for supporting this piece of legislation.
Thank you for your commitment to our youth and our communities. We really need you. Okay. Introduction 566B, sponsored by Councilmember Gail Brewer, would require the DOE, in consultation with the Parks Department, to create an annual report on how to expand public access to school playgrounds. The plan would need to prioritize playgrounds that are located in environmental justice areas and include, for the upcoming year, a list of at least 15 school playgrounds that could be open to the public on weekends and after school hours. I invite Councilmember Brewer to discuss her bill.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And this is a bill that when I stand on a street in my neighborhood that has a park, which is really just a playground that is closed, it takes up 3/4 of the block. It's closed in the summer and on weekends, and it is next door to a NYCHA development. And you think to yourself, why can't this be open? So for 20 years, I've been working on this, and I really appreciate the support of the chair of Parks Committee. Thank you, Councilmember Krishnan, and all of the 25 co-sponsors. We know that young people need outdoor recreation. That's for their physical, mental, and social well-being. Believe it or not, there are 945 school buildings with an outdoor yard. 288 of them, that's about 30%, are open to the public outside of school hours, and those include those who are jointly operated by Parks and DOE and, of course, Trust for Public Land. And they are always full of young people, non-school hours, and the custodians make sure they're clean because the custodians get paid to make sure that Monday morning they are safe for the children. So as the Speaker indicated, this bill will grow that number by at least 15 schoolyards per year, prioritizing low-income communities with the least access to outdoor open space. Many organizations support this concept. The New York Communities for Change, New York Restoration Project, New York League of Conservation Voters, Open Plans, Randall's Island Park Alliance, Riverside Park Conservancy, Trust for Public Land, Wellness in the School, and many others. And I look forward to passage, and I thank very much everyone who made this possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Really good stuff for our young folks today. Introduction 205A, sponsored by Councilmember Shahana Hanif, would require the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection to conduct outreach about common fraudulent schemes committed by providers of immigration and legal services and how to avoid them. The bill would also require DCWP to report annually on its outreach and education efforts, as well as complaints and inspections related to providers of immigrant assistance services. I invite Councilmember Hanif to the podium to discuss her bill.
I see some young people in the crowd. Just wanted to say hi to you all. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Councilmember Shahana Hanif. Thank you to Speaker Adams for including my Intro 205A to combat immigration services fraud on today's stated agenda. I'd also like to thank Chair Aviles and Chair Menon for holding a hearing on this bill back in April, and Council members Narcisse, Ung, Marte, Krishnan, and Lee for introducing this bill alongside me. I'm a proud daughter of 2 Bangladeshi immigrants, and I was raised in Kensington in Brooklyn's Little Bangladesh, which I now have the privilege of representing in City Council. As a child, my parents weren't yet citizens. Growing up, I saw how precarious immigration status creates constant anxiety. And my parents lived in Brooklyn. They lived typical Brooklyn lives, but were very fearful that everything could be stripped away in seconds. Immigrant legal service fraudsters thrive on this sense of vulnerability. These bad actors, who are often not lawyers, trick families into paying high fees for bad services that may actually harm their immigration cases. For immigrants living paycheck to paycheck, falling victim to fraud can be financially devastating. I introduced this bill after talking with a recently arrived asylum seeker at a Key to the City event in my district, who told me about the toll fraud took on her family. What makes this even more frustrating is that city agencies and our network of contracted nonprofit organizations can often provide these services free or low cost. This long-standing issue has worsened with the recent rise in new arrivals. According to the Department of Consumer and Worker Protections, complaints are at an all-time high, and the State Office of New Americans also repeats an increase. Intro 205A will require DCWP to educate immigrant communities about common scams, how to spot and avoid them, reputable immigration legal services, and how to report fraud through DCWP's complaint systems. To reach as many people as possible, the campaign will use internet and subway ads and key public locations, including but not limited to IDNYC registration sites, humanitarian emergency centers, or HERCs, asylum seeker resource centers, public schools, shelters, and other city social service facilities. The bill also requires DCWP to report annually on its outreach and education efforts. My bill, along with Councilmember Wan's Intro 980A, are the most comprehensive steps any city in the country has taken to tackle this issue. As the Trump administration's anti-immigrant policies leave our immigrant communities fearful, anxious, and confused about their legal options, it is crucial to educate these communities about scams and prevent exploiters from taking advantage of their fears. I look forward to this afternoon's vote. Thank you.
Introduction 980A, sponsored by Councilmember Julie Won, would increase civil penalties for immigration assistance service providers that do not comply with applicable regulations. The bill would also clarify that immigration assistance service providers who advertise services must post or include with the ad a legally required notice of the services they are not authorized to provide. I invite Councilmember Won to the podium to discuss her legislation.
Thank you so much, Speaker Adams. Day after day, we are seeing and we have witnessed, especially with the arrest of Brad Lander, the comptroller at 26 Federal Plaza, that people are doing the right thing by showing up at their court hearing at immigration court, yet the minute that they leave the courthouse, they are getting snatched. And as me and my colleagues, especially Councilmember Shahana Hanif, Alexa Aviles, and others, have sat in these very courtrooms doing court watch, time after time, day after day, we hear the same exact things being testified by those who are at their hearing. Even when I sat there the day that Brad Lander got arrested, when the judge asked one of the women who were at their court hearing, he said, "Do you have the documents that we requested?" And she said, "I submitted them to my immigration attorney." And they asked, "Where is your immigration attorney and where are the documents?" And she said, "I used Facebook and it promised me that when I forward them the advance of $2,000 that I would have all of my paperwork done on time." Yet the paperwork that the courts had requested were missing. And the lawyers that she had paid for were missing. We could not identify them. We could not track them down. Yet they had taken more than thousands of dollars from her. And time again, we're seeing throughout the migrant crisis throughout our city that we are only seeing an increase of these fraudsters. So today, it is deplorable that to overcharge and mislead desperate community members who are searching for a legal pathway to citizenship. They're trying to do the right thing. And with the passage of Intro 980A, fake lawyers and predatory providers will now receive double the civil penalties for serious violations of New York City laws for immigration assistance services. And today, as you heard from Councilmember Hanif, our package together is passing the most comprehensive and aggressive laws against a nation to protect the immigrants from notorious fraud. So Intro 980A will double the penalties for violating the existing law for existing ranges from $3,750 to $5,000 to now violation penalty of $7,500 to $10,000 for the first violation, and successive violations from the existing $9,000, $10,000 to a range of $18,000 to $20,000. We proposed this law in direct response to several constituents who visited my office as they were victims of predatory immigration service providers and were scammed out of thousands of dollars. I can't imagine how difficult it is. And as you heard from Councilmember Shahana Hanif's first story as well, our first-hand experience, we see this in all of our immigrant communities. I came here as an immigrant, and I know that my mom and my dad had to go through 3 notorious fraud or immigration imposters to get to somebody who truly was a licensed immigration lawyer to make sure that we got our paperwork done on time and we were able to gain our citizenship. But it should not be this way. So we are really excited to see this pass, and we will ensure that the immigrants are given the help that they need and that they're promised during this alarming times with the Trump administration. Thank you so much to the Speaker for all of her support. She truly fights for all of us, especially the immigrants in this city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Introduction 47B, sponsored by Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan, would remove all misdemeanor criminal penalties for general vendors and mobile food vendors. Vendors who operate without a license could be subject to a violation and a fine or a civil penalty. Vendors who violate any other street vending laws would be subject to a civil penalty. I invite Councilmember Krishnan to the podium to discuss his legislation.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm City Council Member Shekhar Krishnan, representing the communities of Jackson Heights, Elmhurst, and Woodside, Queens. On a day when Senate Republicans are voting on a budget bill that will add 10,000 ICE officers to the federal government, further criminalizing immigrants across America, here in New York City, we are doing even more to protect them. I might also add, on a day when Senate Republicans are voting on a budget bill that harms so many communities across America, we in New York City are passing a budget that invests in them here in our city. I'm proud that Intro 47B is set to pass today at our stated meeting. I would like to thank Speaker Adams for her leadership in moving this bill forward and all my colleagues who have signed on in support and who are voting for it today. Our street vendors are our smallest businesses across the city. Over 96% of our street vendors are immigrants. They provide us coffee on our way to work, tacos during a quick lunch break, and ice cream on a hot summer day. I know this representing Jackson Heights, and I know these are fighting words, but I do believe we have the best street food in all of New York City. But the fact of the matter is, because of a broken vending system, street vendors could face jail time for simply trying to support their families, for simply trying to pay rent or pay for child care. With the federal government's horrific immigrant policies that are only about to get worse, the consequences of vending violations have become even more stark for a workforce that, again, is 96% immigrant. It is more important than ever that we protect our immigrant communities, so affected by what is happening by the criminalizations of immigrants across our country. In neighborhoods like my own in Jackson Heights and Elmhurst, we know that our immigrant communities are the backbone of our neighborhoods. They are the essential workers of our city. Intro 47B is a common sense reform measure that was agreed upon by a diverse set of stakeholders, including enforcement agencies, street vendors, and business advocates. The bill supports a clear, fair, regulated, and enforceable vending system. As part of that system, it removes the criminal liability for vendors, ensuring that our city's smallest businesses do not face criminal charges or jail time, which can, we all know, have disastrous consequences in the immigration system as well. The passing of Intro 47 represents just the first step in many that the City Council is actively considering that would create a clear and comprehensive, well-regulated and enforceable vending system, one that our city desperately needs. I want to again thank Speaker Adams, my colleagues who are champions of the street vendor reform package, Councilmember Sanchez, De La Rosa, Majority Leader Farias, and Public Advocate Williams, and my other colleagues who have signed on in support. And a special thank you to our Speaker for working with us to ensure today's legislation, which is historic and so needed. If it was ever clear from today's vote this morning in Washington, it is so needed in our city. I want to thank her, Speaker, for her leadership in making sure we brought this bill to passage. And I want to give a special shout out to the team at the Street Vendor Project for their tireless advocacy, for working with us in the Council to reform our city's broken vending system. Much more to come, but at this dark time in our country, I am proud of the step that we are taking today to champion and stand up for immigrants across our city. Thank you.
And Introduction 30B, sponsored by Councilmember Oswald Feliz, would establish safety requirements for powered bicycles when used by contracted delivery workers, including meeting local standards for the sale of such devices, which includes certification by an accredited testing laboratory. Responsibility for compliance with these provisions would fall on the delivery service. I invite Councilmember Feliz to discuss his bill.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all. I'm Councilmember Oswald Feliz. I'm proud and honored to be joined by colleagues in announcing and passing historic legislation, the first in the country requiring that delivery companies provide safe, certified e-bikes to their workers so that we can finally conclude the fire safety challenges posed by defective e-bikes. The threats posed by unsafe e-bikes continue to grow. This year, we've already had 116 fires caused by e-bikes. This is actually the most we've ever had in the first month of any year. 116 fires to the end of June. The threat continues to grow, and it has shown time and time again that it will not go away on its own. Last week, for example, in the Bronx, we had another fire. 15 people injured, including a firefighter, in a 5-alarm fire caused by a defective e-bike. This is a threat that continues to grow. Since day one, we've given this issue unequivocal attention. 2 years ago, we passed many pieces of legislation, including my legislation, requiring that batteries be certified in order to be sold. And since that piece of legislation and the many other pieces, we've actually made a lot of progress, including, for example, we've had less deaths, less injuries, and much more. For example, last year we had 46 injuries due to these e-bikes through the end of June. This year we cut that number by almost half. We're at 25 this year. So we've made progress, less deaths, less injuries, but we still have the problem. We actually have a higher number of fires, the most amount of fires that we've ever had due to these e-bikes. So we're taking additional action today. Today we'll be passing historic legislation, the first in the country, again, that will require that these delivery companies provide a safe and certified battery and e-bike to their workers so that we can finally put an end to this fire safety crisis that's been affecting us. We are in a fire safety crisis. Again, 116 fires through the end of June. These fires are dangerous, they're destructive, they escalate fast, they're difficult to extinguish. They put all of us at risk. We've lost too many homes, we've had too many tragedies, and we've lost too many New Yorkers due to these fires. This is a crisis that can and must be concluded, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing by making sure that these delivery companies provide a safe and certified e-bike so that every worker would be able to work as long as they want, be able to support their family, be able to support our city, and they will not have to put their lives at risk. I want to thank everyone, including and especially Speaker Adams, for being a great partner on this issue. We've had 116 fires already this year, and we're going to continue to give this issue attention until we get that number to 0. Thank you so much.
Okay. This concludes our stated agenda. With that, we will take on topic questions first on the agenda items we're voting on today. Councilmember Brannan, you want to step up in case there are budgets? On budget? Good.
So this budget has received some criticism for not adequately preparing for these looming federal cuts. Obviously, this is also coming today as lawmakers in Washington are voting on the big, beautiful bill. I wonder how you address those concerns.
Well, you know, this budget focuses on more than any other budget. It focuses on the needs of New Yorkers, which all of us have heard through our constituents on a daily basis over the past year and then some. This budget finally includes some things that we've been fighting for 4 years now, to make sure that New Yorkers are okay. We also made sure that, once again, we have been fiscally responsible to our communities, to our city, and making sure that we are Trump-proofing this city to the best of our ability. I don't know if the finance chair wants to chime in at all.
I think we made a conscious decision that right now it was more important to deploy money into the communities that need it most. You can't run a city on reserves. So we have to be ready. I think we're passing a Trump-proof budget, but with $8.5 billion in reserves, we're in a good place. We've never had that much in reserves, but this is a moment when I think if we're talking about putting more into reserves and we're talking about making cuts, you have to take the money from somewhere, and this is not a time to be making cuts, especially for our most vulnerable communities. So I think this was a time when the economy is strong in the city of New York. We have the money we need to take care of New Yorkers, and that was a conscious decision that we made.
There's also concern about the budget allocating more than inflation. I wonder, we're also talking about a kind of impending recession.
Yeah, I think all budgets are a snapshot in time, and obviously today we're going to pass the budget, but that doesn't mean that the work stops tomorrow. There'll be budget modifications in the coming months, and we'll have to stay vigilant, and that's what we're going to do. We're in a very, very unprecedented, uncertain time here. But I think the decisions that we made were prudent and smart and deliver for the New Yorkers that need it most, and frankly, deliver for the New Yorkers that might be hurt worst and first by what's going on in Washington today.
Hi, yes. Hi. I wanted to ask you, how is this budget different from the past 3 years? You mentioned it on Friday, but it seems like this one was a little bit easier. And then I also wanted to ask, the mayor surprisingly is going to do a whole pro bono legal services when it comes to immigration. That was something that you guys were pushing until the last minute, even the day before. Were you surprised he came up put the money, or I guess decided to do it?
Well, to the last part, were we surprised? We knew that something extra was going to happen. It had to, particularly given the day and times that we're in right now and knowing the unprecedented situation that New York City in as a whole. We have seen, and my colleagues today have even mentioned, an arrest of a sitting comptroller, unheard of, being susceptible to the Trump administration's mass deportation efforts. The people that are doing what they're supposed to do legally are being grabbed out of courts down the street. So we knew that more had to be insisted upon by this council, but not just that. We expected more from the administration. We were obviously very happy with the results of what we received for legal services for those that need it the most. As far as this budget being different than budgets in the past, well, in the past, and you all are aware of this, we were focused on restoring harmful and unnecessary cuts. And this year, we are finally seeing progress beyond just a restoration of cuts, and instead towards a very meaningful investment and a lot of good baselining for our priorities. But that's a product, again, of all of our work together, listening to New Yorkers, knowing what they've needed all these years, and for us to finally see all of that work come through this budget after 4 years.
Well, I just wanted to follow up because the mayor said it was the easiest one, and I know that previous years there's been a lot of back and forth. Do you think it was easy because he's also in a re-election year, so he came to the table with different motivations than maybe the last couple?
Well, it's not a coincidence that this is an electoral year, so it probably was a lot easier for him. For the council, it is always our prioritizing what is in the best needs of New Yorkers, and for that part, it hasn't changed. But it is a very, very good budget that we're all very proud of. Hi, Liz.
Parks advocates are still pointing out that nearly 800 positions that work on have not been restored. Everybody always talks about parks, public spaces as being the great utilizer. My question is why is it perennially so difficult for parks to get the kind of funding that they want? For instance, the 1%. Is it just too much to ask? Why can't lawmakers make this a priority?
Yeah, it's a great question, and year after year, this has been our North Star as a city council. Goodness knows we have the best advocate for parks that ever walked the face of the earth in Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan. The city has to continue, though, to make investments to move a lot closer to the goal. We try every year to get to that 1%. For whatever reason, we cannot push the administration as far as we want them to go when it comes to parks, but we're going to keep on pushing, obviously. But, on the other side of the coin, we have successfully secured funding for key programs in this budget, urban parks rangers and tree stump removals and community gardens. We've made very good progress with those entities within this budget, but we're going to continue to push. We agree with you that 1% absolutely needs to happen.
Just a quick follow-up to Liz's question. I asked about the park jobs, and Chuck Jiha, the budget director, made it seem like I was incorrect in that, and I just wanted to get your take and maybe the council members' take on, they're trying to restore jobs that have been cut from 2023.
Yep.
So if you want to just confirm that that is correct, that there are hundreds of jobs that have not been filled since 2023 when there were pegs to programs. If you have any information on which programs or even aspects of park hiring are most affected by this, and then then why Jacques Jiha claims that it's not true.
Yeah, and I'll call up Shekhar to deal with this also. There are absolutely many vacancies within parks because of the pegs that need to be restored, and we absolutely concur with your assessment on that. Shekhar, I don't know if you want to.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I think just taking a step back for a second, this budget is always a negotiation. It is a hard negotiation. As Speaker Adams said, we in the City Council have placed parks as one of the top issues consistently, fighting hard every year. But as we fight hard, on the other side, we have encountered resistance after resistance. We passed the highest budget for parks in New York City 4 years ago. But since then, Mayor Adams and administration have done cuts after cuts. So to your point, Katie, there's about 700 positions. Your question was right on last week, too. There are about 700 positions that the Parks Department has lost over the course of these cuts over the last several years. We in the City Council have fought hard every year to restore them, to stop cuts. This year, we've added 173 positions, but there's more work to do. I can tell you that we in the City Council know the job is not done. We keep fighting hard to get those positions restored. We would like to see an administration that not only pays lip service to parks, but actually delivers on them the way that we are doing as a City Council, and we will keep pushing for that too.
Hi, Ethan.
So in years past, usually the most left-leaning members of the council vote against the budget. I mean, it's usually been because of the cuts. I guess this year, things are a bit different. Are you expecting a different vote margin this time?
I am hoping for a different vote margin this session. Certainly my colleagues have expressed holistically that this is a very good budget that we're passing for New Yorkers. Thank you. Hi.
So as part of the budget on Friday, it was announced that $6.1 million will be allocated to fund a Department of Sustainable Delivery within the Department of Transportation. I know there's been this bill it's been like this draft of a bill that's been going back and forth. That's not enough to fund that 28-page bill. So I'm curious, what will this $6.1 million do? What will it actually be funding? Do you have any details on that?
Well, it will. The mayor actually has the big picture of the department itself, which we are anxious to see. Anything legislatively, we're going to be looking towards working with the administration to make that happen. So the funding is going to go hopefully towards staffing this agency. The legislation, the legislative process, that part still hasn't come before us, but we are hopeful that this is a needed agency. Goodness knows it's been stalled for long enough.
What will the agency do? Like, aside from the staffing, was there any part in the negotiation where it became clear what it would actually do?
Well, again, the specifics have to come through the legislation. Those specifics are going to be brought to the council. We just realized that this is an agency holistically that should happen. We can get you more information.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Speaker, the City Council held that rally for the mayor to approve immigrant legal services just the day before the handshake. Were you receiving pushback from the administration on that point at that point in time? If so, what changed in that?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it pushback per se, because we were still, that was the last piece that we wanted to get across the finish line. But where we were getting some of what was needed, we weren't getting all of what was needed. So there was just more negotiation to be done. There's always a pleading of a case when it comes to negotiating things. And once the case was fully pleaded, then, the work was done and we felt that we were in a good spot.
Any other on-topic? Okay, I'm going to let the council members stay. Feel free. I need to stay for a while.
Unless you want to stay. Thanks. Everybody's good? Oh, because I was okay.
All right. Kate, you want to?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask if we wanted to talk a little bit more about this solitary stuff from today. The judge struck down Mayor Adams' return to solitary. So we want to talk a little bit about that, especially what it means for detainees and also correctional.
Sure. Well, obviously, the judge's ruling absolutely declared that the mayor did exceed his emergency, and this decision immediately knocks down the mayor's emergency orders, and we would like the mayoral administration to begin working towards being in compliance with the local law. We're thankful for the judgment that came through today.
Have you spoken, or has anyone from your team spoken yet to the folks down the hall about this?
No, not yet. Yeah.
Are you planning on retiring?
No, I've never, and you know, thank you for asking that question, because a lot of people, you know, even before I got into the race or got in whatever, kept saying, oh, she was going to retire. I have never used the R word. I had a lot going on. You know, I continue to say I have so many options that I'm grateful for. I don't intend to retire.
So will you seek further elected office?
I have so many options that I am looking forward to kind of parsing out. So I'm looking forward to looking at all of my options, private, public. Yeah.
Any other questions, Ethan?
You know, I know this is still a ways down the road, but if Assemblymember Mamdani were to offer you a position
Oh,
in
geez.
potential administration, is that something you would be open to? And then also, would you campaign for him in any way?
Oh, my goodness. Ethan, I appreciate your question, and it really is so far down the road. We're not even, tomorrow will be a week since the primaries, and I'm still recovering from all of that wonderful work that I've done over the past few months. So we'll look further down the road as time goes on to see what is down the road in the cards. I have no plans to do either, by the way.
To follow up on that, I wanted to ask the council member, would he take a position in the administration?
I think we first have to get the assembly member elected first in November, and then we can have those conversations. But for me, my main focus is getting this budget passed, and now making sure that in November we get Zoran elected.
Is that it? Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
You did say 25 now.
It was not crazy.